Welcome to tonight's lighting feedback. I am Jasmine Katatikarn, and I am here to give you lighting feedback on your work. I'm super excited to be here. This is my first feedback of the month. To give you some background, my name is Jasmine, as I said. I have over 10 years experience in feature animation at Blue Sky Studios. I've also worked in VFX at places like The Mill and Frame Store. Currently working at Amazon, and I am also the co-founder of the Academy of Animated Art. And my favorite part of the day is seeing the amazing work on here, and I'm so excited to give feedback. So let's get right into it. Today we have Christopher, and I will preface, I know many of these works are in progress and they've gotten feedback from some of our amazing feedback providers in the previous months. I did look at some of the feedback, but I want to say I'm kind of starting with fresh eyes because I think that is very important to just come at it from a different perspective. So apologies if some of this feedback might contradict what you've heard before. I will go back later on and take a look as I keep on giving feedback on the previous notes to acclimate myself. But at this moment, I think fresh eyes is like super important whenever going into a new shot. So I just want to preface that. So we have Christopher's shot here, the cabin. I am really liking this. I kind of scrolled through really quickly and I've seen that it's gone quite far, and I'm liking where you're going, especially like, this reference with the singular light in the woods, I think is really nice. The first thing, and I think it's working really well, we're getting that feel. I like the atmospherics that you have in there, and also what I think is working really well is this subtle rim light that you have going on in the trees here. I think that's a really nice touch that you have. A couple opportunities I see is, one, I love the light coming from here. I feel like it could be even more diffuse and glow. Like I see like this, like almost, if I'm looking at this reference here, let's see, like right here, I'm looking at it and you get even like, it's subtle, but you see this gradient in the brightness and almost like a glow coming from here. And I'd love to kind of see that a little bit here and a little bit of diffuse coming from there. The biggest thing though that I'm getting distracted, my eye wants to focus here, right? This is kind of similar into your reference, but where my eye starts going to, and I don't know if this is intentional, is that these spots right here are super hot, especially this one over here. As we get further, I'd expect more of a fall off, similar to kind of that subtlety that we're getting over here. And if I were to imagine it, as it gets further away from this light source, the less intense it would be. But here I'm feeling it being very hot, and here too it's blowing out essentially. So I would dim that way down and have a nice fall off going on. I will say these little areas here are quite nice. I like that, what's going on there. That can come down quite a little bit too, but really it's like this hot spots here really can be brought down, and then these would not be as bright. We want to keep them more subtle. There's an art and subtlety here. So overall, I think, you're really close. I've seen the progress. I think it's going really well. I think to bring it all together is to really focus the viewer's eye right here, similarly to the reference, how it's being super focused in here, and feeling the opportunity to bring it down as it gets further away from that light source. But overall, I think it's great. I think once we do that, there might be an opportunity to bring a little bit more contrast back into the house area here and let it kind of fall more into the atmosphere here to kind of really pop this house out. But overall, I think it's really good. It's super close, and I can't wait to see the updates. let's move on. Here we have Ingrid, and you provided 2 shots from the beginning of this animation, and taking a look at it, I like it. I'm very curious what's going on, which is always a good sign. The biggest thing is I'm looking at the light sources, and I like how the main light source is coming from the door, and then you get kind of a secondary light source going on over here that I think is really interesting. The biggest thing, the opportunity here I see is, okay, so the main light source is coming here, and this is getting a nice kind of shaping that we see going on. And then here, this character is getting hit pretty hard, right? And I think, one, that can come down a bit. We're seeing a little bit of like blowout here, and I feel like we should get some more natural fall off. And then another opportunity here to kind of balance it out is we're getting a lot, it's like very black, right? I don't know if this is intentional, but one thing, he's just falling flat here, where we're getting a very strong kind of rim backlight type scenario, but there's no shaping here in the dark. So we kind of want to wrap, kind of introduce a bit of a fill, but wrap it in a way so you get that shaping. And here too, I think we need to bring back some of this information here, because it is dark, but at the same time, there's it's really tricky lighting dark areas. I think it's most trickiest actually. You want to get some shaping in there. You want to feel the volume without overlighting it. So what that looks like is bringing in, I would suggest bringing in a fill, a subtle fill here, and bringing in, and perhaps like a wrap too around this body to kind of give it a little bit more shaping here. I can again bring down this light that's hitting him here. The other thing I'll say is I want to see more of this expression here. It's a very interesting expression. He seems pretty pissed off. I want to read it as a viewer, right? And this is where, you know, most of the light, the largest light source is coming from this doorway here, but we have wiggle room to kind of bring in some lighting into his face. And that could be in the form of, let's say, a bounce, right? You can bounce a little bit of light back up to his face. We want to see his expression in his eyes. So I would add that as well. So the viewer is seeing his face, his expression, and then going to this character over here. So yeah, overall I think super close, and the fact that I am reading it, it is super engaging, and this is where the refinement of the lighting will really help sell the story even more. Other things is, I think let's start there. One thing I question is, and this is where if we see all the other shots that are going on, I'm curious about, is this too bright, honestly? Like, can we bring this back? And I like the play of the warm and the cool, but I'm wondering, where's the source of this light here? Is it too strong? And this is where continuity comes into play. Like, what's the next shot? Does it align with that? So those are some questions that I have where, you know, as we continue looking at this, we can take a look at. But overall, great job, and I can't wait to see the updates. Moving on, we've got Ben, and it is the eyeball texture, which, amazing job. I'm really liking the detail here. This is like the details you never see, right, in an eyeball, but I find it kind of beautiful and fascinating. So, you know, especially if this is all procedural, which I suspect it is, feeling supernatural, really nice. The biggest call out I have here is one, I'd love to see the reference that you're working from, but then I like that you're utilizing, you know, 2 different colors here, but it doesn't feel very natural to me. So I'm not sure what the look you're going for, but usually if you look at an iris, there'll be like a more kind of natural transition here, flow. It's more organic. So that's something that, I'd look into. With the reflections, I will say this is, it's a bit of an opinion or thing, but often the biggest note for eyes is that we don't want to see too much reflection often, especially in the pupil area. It's distracting. This is where, it's artistic license, but that's something that I always call out. You gotta watch out for reflections in eyes, and according to the artistic direction, you might want to kind of lessen the amount of reflection in an eye, so it makes it just more clear and distinct. As far as, there's something funny going on here. I don't know if that's the refraction, that's the number of rays, but yeah, there's something going on here, so that's not looking quite right. I'll look into that. But overall, I think, you're really hitting on the procedural shading methodology, and I think it's looking really good. I think it's, my question is like, what is the look that you're going for here? Because right now it's kind of graphic, not super organic, so this is where reference really comes in handy. Okay, great job. So moving on, we got Louise, and really, I love this scene. I love seeing everyone working on it. So overall, on a high level, just looking at this with fresh eyes for the first time, let's see what I see. So a couple of things. I think, there's quite a lot of successful things going on here. I'm liking the strong key light coming in. It's creating some interesting gobo effects from the window. It's getting, I'm reading the scene. I'm really seeing all of the characters and whatnot. And I think, the key light, I'm liking a lot, the positioning. I think the first thing that I'm noticing of an area of opportunity here is the key light, I think, is coming in a little bit strong on their skin. I feel like that overall, like, the key light can just go down a touch, as well as the fill. Like, I think what I'm seeing, I'm feeling like I want a little bit more shaping here, especially as it feels a little bit too even right now. And I'd like it to be a little bit less on the key, and this is like the areas of the key that I'm noticing, and that's what's making me feel like it's way too bright, especially like right here on the eyes too, and right here. So that's where I'd slightly bring down the key overall, and then I would be not afraid to like kind of have a grad here. So this falls more into shadow. Like, I want this to be shadow, and I would say that, the fill then wouldn't be so even if this is more kind of a grad into shadowness here, and then we'd get less of a fill hitting, and that way they will kind of give it more volume and shaping overall. Same here. I feel like with such a bright key light, sometimes you get more of that contrast, right, in the fill. So that's what I'm kind of missing. Like, it's just kind of coming a little bit flat in here and ambient. So I want to get more shaping into here. So essentially, I think, one, bring down the key light a bit from the window, and then let's bring down the fill. Let's kind of create more shaping here in all of these elements on the fill side, and also bring this into like a grad of dark, so it gets darker as it goes there, and I think it will create some nice depth to the background as well. So let's try that. But overall, I think it's working really well. Okay, next we have forum, and I am definitely in the Christmas spirit looking at this. I think it's great. I love the diffusion that's going on. I think it's pretty close. I know I took a quick glimpse of the previous. I know you've been working on this quite a bit. Let me look at the reference. So yeah, I'm loving this. The night, the tree. Okay, now let me look at yours. So I'm seeing like the color tone similar to this one. That's great. We've got the kind of the fuse and the glowiness and the brightness coming from the house. I think one of the biggest things that, this is almost there. The biggest thing that I would like to see when I saw this is a little bit of the warm light hitting this foreground tree. So what I mean is like right here, right? Like a little bit of a rim, very subtle, of warmth, as if it's picking up, light from this tree, but a little bit light from the house, And what I'm looking for is, you see these like hits here, and I think, like as I say this tree right here, you can have a little bit of a warmth hit here, and it'd be super nice to tie that in, right? Even over here too. Basically, like give it a little warmth. Give the trees a little bit of warmth, because I'm looking at like this tree here. Like how nice does that feel? Like it's getting warmth from the house. This one as well. This one you see as well. This one as well. So, and like you see how this one's getting hit here. Like this is what, and this one's getting hit here. Now like you see it everywhere, right? So this is what I'd like to see in your shot to bring it all together. Tie it all in. Let's bring that warm light onto the trees a little bit more, and onto this one. You can do a little bit more on this one too, a little bit more warmth. It's more cool. And I think I'll just bring that friendliness back in there. So let's try that. Overall, I think it's going really great, and it'll be right in time for the holiday season, because it's almost there. Great job. Okay, mushroom scene. Here we go. Rewya, so excuse me if I pronounce that incorrectly. So I took a quick scroll on your scene. I do see that you've gone through many iterations of this. Well, not many, but and that's the one thing. Iterations isn't a bad thing. I actually think it's a really good thing, because you're playing with it, you're testing it, and the first one's never the right one. Although I will say there's been plenty of times in my career where I've gone through many iterations, and then weeks later I'll like reflect and I'll look at the first one I did, and I was like, you know what? I like that one best. So don't be afraid to, go full circle if need be. But let me focus on your current submission. The biggest thing, I noticed you sent out a separate render of this volume light to showcase. Volume lights are a very tricky thing, I have to say. And what I often do, and this is what I'm going to suggest that you do when it comes to volume lighting, because volume lighting can really like distract you. Because essentially, if you look at this, it does affect quite a big portion of the scene. In your case, like 50% of your scene is going to be spread by this volume light. But at the same time, before you add something this big, you want to make sure the foundation is solid. Where I mean, like the foundational lighting is solid before you add an effect. And this is where I say like a volume light is a little bit of an effect, right? So what I would suggest is take out the volume light completely. And first, let's focus on the lighting itself. Let's make sure the lighting without the volume here is in a good place. And where I mean is like, you can project that volume light's going to be there, where you create like a nice kind of rim going, a warm rim, as if it would hit, and like same here, etc. And then you can add the volume light there, but you want to make sure the lighting itself and the values of your shot is in a good solid place. And why I say that is if I were to picture this volume light off, the things I'm seeing is like up here, it's very ambient, it's very flat, like underneath these mushrooms. I'm not getting any shaping here, right? And that's a call out to me. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, look at all the bottoms of this. And that's something I want to look at. Another thing that I'm noticing is her hair is it's black, but it's very black, right? It's like it's not receiving any light. These are things that we want to make sure we get right before adding and distracting with the big volume here. And, as we get into volumes, then you'll be like, yeah, the rim light, there should be a warm light hitting here, it should be hitting here, etc. So let's try this exercise. Let's put aside the volume light. Keep in mind that we can add it in afterwards. And when we do add it back in, like this area here, like one call out is like, this is super sharp. I feel like it should be way softer. It doesn't feel like it's fitting like up into the mushroom right now. So things like that we can definitely work on. But before we go into that, let's get the core foundational lighting in a good place. So I'd love to see an update without the volume light and just the lighting itself worked on. So yeah, I'm super excited. I think if we get the core correct, then that will just fall into place. So I look forward to that update. Next, we got Vazi. Apologies again about the name. Well, this is finished. I saw this is your final output. So this is more like, hooray, amazing job. I think it looks great. If I were to give any feedback, which, usually when something's like done, I call it done. But if I were to give one feedback on this, the one thing I'll say is I'm liking, the nice cool light that's hitting here. If I were to step back, the one thing that's calling out to me is these two frames, I don't know why, they're like glowing. Like the images inside them seem like they're very lit, where the frame itself is not getting any light hit, right? Or the wall behind it. So I question, I think I would suggest to bring back that to lower kind of that visibility of these frames. Or if you don't do that, I'm picturing where is this coming from? It's kind of, and this is where I wonder, not to add work to you because I know this is done, the light's hitting here, so it means it's not really hitting up here so much. So one, yes, I would bring down the lighting here so these frames don't feel like they're not integrating with the space, the dark. I think there is room to add a little bit of a bounce or something to create a little bit more shaping up along this wall, because it is just falling a little bit dark and flat. And the other question I have is this door. This door is very evenly lit right now, and I feel like there should be some kind of I don't think it should be as bright here, because then it's not falling in line with this wall here. So I think this could go into the darkness a little bit as well. So I know, done. I just made a couple of feedback opportunities for you. Choose what you want to do with it. A thing I just heard about today, regardless of visual feedback or written feedback, a lot of the things where someone said, keep in mind this is feedback. It's not mandatory to do, but if you choose to take it, it could, open your eyes and, make something even better. So it's your choice. But overall, I think super successful, and I love it. I think you did a great job. Let's see, what do we have next here? We have Michal, and Okay, I have no reference to what this is, but looking at it with fresh eyes, again, we've got volume lighting, which is cool. The one thing, so this is where, I'm kind of going to say again, volume lighting can be distracting, right? It's super cool effect, but also very distracting in how to establish like what's working and what's not. But overall, I did read something like a green light. You added more of a green light here, and I'm assuming it's right here. To me, if I'm just looking at the shot, for first time graphically, it's a little bit I'm trying to find the words, like not like this is feeling super dark to me here. Like I'm seeing where it's like the lines are coming from the volume, but I'm wondering if it's too broad right now. And then here I'm wondering why it's so dark here in these areas. So one of the things, let me think about this one. It's a little tricky. This green light honestly is a little distracting to me with this volume. Like, would that be... I'm wondering if this volume... Honestly, this is where volumes are tricky because I'm trying to dissect this volume. Like, would the volume here be affecting this light that is right underneath it, the way that I'm seeing it now? And I feel like it wouldn't go directly under like this naturally. And this is what's distracting me here, because I'm seeing like strobes essentially, and maybe that's the intention. But one thing, okay, I think I know what this is that's distracting me. I think there needs to be more fall off on this volume light, because right now it kind of is coming in really strong from the outside, which is cool, but there's no fall off. I think there is a slight fall off, but I think it should be more subtle. That's the thing with volume lights. Like, I think we want to pump it in to see it, but I think the most successful volume lights are subtle. They're softer too. Like, this is a very hard volume light. We're seeing these like hard shadows. I would test this with like a soft light. And apologies if you have a reference. I don't have it up here, and that could be skewing me as well, and I think that's where a reference is really important. So I will go and look to see if you have a reference after this. If you don't have a reference, please put one up so I can take a look at it. So it will help guide help me guide you where you want to go. Another call out is these eyes. You see they're both like have glowing eyes here, like they're not human. So that is something that I would address. And another thing here, I think I would work on more shaping. Again, it's like they're getting super sharp hit from this volume light, but then it's really hard and then they just fall flat in the shadow area. So this is where we can really play with like creating more shaping on them, more gradual shaping. Maybe it looks like there's a more kind of solid rim here, and then it grads off into dark here, so there's not a sharp line. But I think overall it is looking a little bit hazy and a little bit flat at the same time. So I think, to wrap it up, softening the volume, increasing the fall off on it, I think will help, and then focusing on how to shape these characters in a way that's appealing. Watch out for the eye reflection that's going on here, that's just super bright. And then I think from there I'm going to address the green light after seeing it all put together. But overall, I think it's a super interesting scene, and I'm curious about what the story is, and that's always a great thing to keep the audience curious. Okay, one of my favorite exercises, using primitives and mimicking an actual scene. So overall, I like it. I heard how, Mike thought it was interesting and funny of like, this is a very serious scene and this feels very whimsical. I agree, I like it. I think overall my first impressions here is that the scene, like if I'm looking at values, and that's a big thing when you're looking at lighting, especially if you're lighting to reference, look at the values. And if I'm looking at it just at a glance, this scene right here is feeling much brighter in value than your reference. And I'm calling out like here is, you know, brighter, but then as it bounces up, right, like this is super bright here, and we're not seeing any of that brightness in this reference here. So we're seeing less of the warmth, because since this space is darker here, we're seeing less of that bounce, less of that strength here in the cool light. But what's interesting is what I'm seeing here is a lot of warm light coming into play here. And while I see that you have it coming here, it's, look at kind of the balance here of how it'd be. Like if I was looking, if this ball is the woman here, right? If you look right here, most of it is warmth, right? And then maybe right here is a little bit cool. But right now you have a lot of cool hitting this. And the warmth is there, but it's competing. So you're not getting that same value ratio and temperature ratio. So that's something, one, match this temperature value and then align it also with this bounce going on, because it's overly cool. Like we're not feeling that here. The other thing I'll say is this background. Look at the background here in this reference. It's fairly dark compared to your background. So I think all this background can be pushed back into the darkness, and that would help give it depth and align it better with the reference. But overall, I think it's going really well, and I can't wait to see the updates. Next up is the reference. So we do not need to focus on that. And lastly, we've got Isabella. Is that the last one? Yep, that's the last one. So Isabella, awesome. Another scene of the X here, which I love seeing animations being lit. I think overall, first impression, I like the color palette that you chose. It's definitely different. It's nice to see the variety of how people are choosing to light this scene. The biggest call out, the first thing I'll say is, if I'm looking at the key and fill ratio here of your reference scene, I'm not feeling that same contrast here, which means that a couple things might be going on. Is where's your key position, right? And then also the strength of your lights. So what I'm seeing is, I feel like the way this scene is, I feel like you have the agency to kind of, move your key light a little bit more frontal here. So it'll be hitting your characters a little bit more from that angle. The other thing is, I'm finding not so much shaping, especially in the fill side. So I think there's an opportunity to, one, decrease the fill. Sorry, I'm on a touchpad here, not the best. I don't know why I'm even trying to write fill, but there you go. Decrease the fill here and try to create a little bit of shaping. So it goes from dark to a little bit lighter here, and you kind of see it here, right? He's darker here, and he wraps around, and that's where the key light. The other thing I'll say, and I'm looking at the shadows specifically. Shadows are a great kind of clue to what your light is, right? I always kind of go to shadows first. If you're looking at this, the shadows, you're not seeing those sharp shadows, right? In this reference, I'm trying to see. I guess you see a little bit over here. But not, I mean, that's a different light source, actually. That's an even brighter light source. But if I'm looking directly here, we're not seeing it, which means it's a softer light. So that tells me that we have an opportunity to soften the light as well. So that's something that we will look into when you are kind of swinging your key slightly around. I think you have some wiggle room to maybe even slightly increase the key, but you want to decrease the fill. And when I say slightly, like very slightly, I'm curious to see what this looks like as it's pulled onto the faces. And then, okay, this is a great reference. So we got a box for a box, essentially. So if we were to take a look at this box here, so take a look at the contrast of the levels of this box on the key side here and the fill side here. And then you have a direct comparison to fill side here and key side here. So this is a great exercise. Just match this front part of the box here with the value here. And then same here, this value should be here. And that will help you kind of guide your key fill ratio. And that's the beauty of reference. You have visual reference to help guide you. So overall, let's start with that. The other thing is this wall behind. I think it's way too bright. It's distracting. If you look at the wall behind, we have, a dark here. It does get a little bit brighter here, but not as bright as this. So what I would suggest is, as you soften this shadow will get softer, but then let's bring down the hit of the light hitting this wall, and then let's have a nice grad that happens here when this happens. Okay, awesome. I can't wait to see the updates on this one and everyone else's. And with that, happy lighting. Talk to you soon.